Most people are taught the same story. Modern economics begins in the 18th century. Markets are explained by supply and demand. And everything starts with Adam Smith. But that story has a problem. 400 years before Adam Smith, before capitalism had a name, before economics was even considered a science, one man had already mapped how economies rise, peak, decay, and collapse with frightening accuracy. He explained why taxes rise before civilizations fall, why luxury weakens productivity, why states destroy the very wealth they depend on. And he warned that every economy moves in cycles, not straight lines. His name was Ibn Khaldun. And what he discovered may explain why modern economies keep repeating the same mistakes, even after centuries of data, models, and warnings. So why was his work ignored? And how did a scholar from the 14th century understand economic cycles better than many policymakers today? Ibn Khaldun was not writing from comfort. He lived through political chaos, plagues, civil wars, collapsing dynasties. The Islamic world of his time was breaking apart. Empires rose and fell within a single lifetime. Cities flourished, then emptied. Wealth appeared, then vanished. Most scholars explain this through religion or fate. Ibn Khaldun refused. He believed history followed patterns, and if patterns existed, they could be studied. This idea alone was revolutionary. In 1377, Ibn Khaldun wrote a book meant as an introduction to history. It became something else entirely. That book was the Muqaddimah. Instead of listing events, Ibn Khaldun asked dangerous questions. Why do societies grow rich? Why do they stagnate? Why do rulers always raise taxes at the worst possible time? Why does success contain the seeds of collapse? What he created was not philosophy. It was economic science centuries before the term existed. Ibn Khaldun began with a simple idea. Wealth does not come from money. It comes from labor. This alone places him far ahead of his time. He argued, value is created by human effort. Production precedes profit. Trade expands wealth but cannot create it alone. Money, in his view, was a tool, not the source. When labor is productive, economies grow. When labor is taxed, discouraged, or controlled, economies shrink. This insight would later be credited to Adam Smith, but Ibn Khaldun wrote it 4 centuries earlier. According to Ibn Khaldun, every civilization begins the same way. A small group with strong social cohesion, what he called asabiya. These groups are disciplined, productive, willing to work hard, willing to sacrifice. Early rulers keep taxes low. They encourage trade. They protect property. Why? Because they need growth. The result is explosive economic expansion. Markets grow. Cities expand. Wealth accumulates. This phase looks like a miracle. But Ibn Khaldun saw it as temporary. As wealth increases, behavior changes. Rulers grow comfortable. Elites grow distant from labor. Luxury replaces discipline. Government expands. Palaces must be maintained. Armies must be paid. Bureaucracies multiply. To fund this, taxes rise. At first, the effect is invisible. Revenue increases. The state feels richer. But Ibn Khaldun warned, high taxes destroy the incentive to produce. People work less. Trade slows. Innovation declines. The state responds the only way it knows how, by raising taxes again. This is Ibn Khaldun's most famous insight. As taxes rise, economic activity falls. Total revenue eventually declines. Not because people disappear, but because effort disappears. This is the medieval version of what modern economists call the Laffer curve, but Ibn Khaldun didn't draw a graph. He watched empires die. Merchants hide wealth. Farmers abandon land. Craftsmen stop producing. The state grows desperate. And desperation accelerates collapse. As revenue falls, rulers make fatal decisions. They confiscate wealth, debase currency, grant monopolies to loyal elites. The economy becomes political. Success depends on access, not productivity. This destroys trust, and once trust collapses, markets freeze. Ibn Khaldun observed this again and again. The pattern never changed. Collapsed civilizations are not repaired. They are replaced. A new group, harder, poorer, more disciplined, takes control. They lower taxes. They restore incentives. They restart the cycle. History, Ibn Khaldun argued, is not progress. It is rotation. So why does Adam Smith dominate economics? Because Europe industrialized. Because Smith wrote during economic expansion, not collapse. Because Ibn Khaldun wrote in Arabic outside Europe's intellectual pipeline. And because empires prefer theories of growth, not theories of decay. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Smith explained how markets work when incentives are aligned. Ibn Khaldun explained what happens when power corrupts incentives. One explains growth. The other explains collapse. Look around today. Rising government spending. Expanding bureaucracies, increasing tax complexity, declining productivity growth. Sound familiar? Ibn Khaldun would not be surprised. He warned that advanced societies always believe, this time is different. It never is. Modern data shows productivity growth slowing in mature economies, debt replacing real output, asset inflation replacing labor income. Ibn Khaldun predicted this without spreadsheets. Because the cause hasn't changed, human behavior hasn't changed. Takeaway 1. Economic growth comes from labor and incentives, not money printing. Takeaway 2. High taxes don't just reduce output, they destroy motivation. Takeaway 3. Every system collapses when rulers forget how wealth is created. Ibn Khaldun believed the most dangerous phase isn't collapse. It's the moment before collapse when leaders believe they've mastered the system. That's when taxes peak. That's when control expands. That's when productivity quietly dies. If a 14th century scholar could map economic cycles without modern data, why do modern societies still repeat them? And more importantly, where are we right now in the cycle? If this changed how you see economics, history, or power, subscribe, because the future doesn't arrive randomly. It follows patterns. And Ibn Khaldun already warned us where those patterns end.